like an hour and 15, I think.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
And I have sniffed so much Yeti that my head immediately became shaped for a flat brim.
When did you know you really liked Cameron?
We became buddies like immediately.
Like
Once
right
we
off the
became
bat?
friends. Yeah. Well, I had him on my podcast. It's the first time I met him, and he brought me a Hoyt bow. So how could I not love him?
I did.
What did you think when that happened?
I thought I made it.
I love it.
I thought I finally made it.
This is Tim Burnett with Solo Hunter, and you're listening to my favorite podcast, The Gritty Bowman.
I just Randy Black Eagle.
Randy
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
Fairly suspicious behavior, and he had a gun, and it was bow season. He was getting ready to shoot the buck with a gun, and Albert walked out of the timber behind him and basically tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you're not going to shoot that buck during bow season, are you?" Guy's like,
I'm a rare and delicate flower.
All right, Aaron, you ready to go?
Yeah, can't you tell?
I am.
Are you in your closet, Aaron? Or are you at work?
Seriously,
I knew that was coming up. God damn it.
I didn't really know.
Aaron, come out of the closet.
On this episode of Gritty Bowman, Aaron Snyder and myself hang out with the Eastmans, Guy and Ike Eastman of the Eastman's Hunting Journal, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, and Eastman's TV. The Eastman's tradition began in 1956 with Gordon Eastman. Gordon was a true pioneer in adventure hunting and outdoor wildlife cinematography. His first project was in the wilds of Alaska. He was also among the first to ever film in the North Country and built such a solid reputation that Walt Disney himself hired Gordon to film outdoor productions in the 1960s. Today, Mike, Guy, and Ike carry on Gordon's legacy by producing the industry-leading publications of Eastman's Hunting and Bow Hunting Journals in combination with the award-winning Eastman's Hunting TV show that airs 52 weeks a year and showcases fair chase rifle and bow hunts on all Western big game. This is just a fun podcast with some solid dudes. If you're not subscribed to Eastman's Hunting Journal and or Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, you should go to www.eastmans.com and get signed up. Eastman's has been around for a long time and continues to be a powerful influence for good in the hunting industry. Get involved, support their work, and get yourself a sweet Western hunting magazine to boot. And for a limited time, Eastman's is offering a great deal to Gritty Bowman listeners. You get 12 issues of Eastman's magazine for $20. Just go to eastmans.com, click on shop, click on subscriptions, and then click the link Gritty Bowman Special. Eastman's is coming out with a sweet new website later this week, and once the new website drops, all you got to do is type in the coupon code GRITTY16 to redeem your Gritty deal. All right, Aaron, you ready to go?
Yeah, can't you tell?
I am.
Are you in your closet, Aaron? Or are you at work?
Seriously,
I knew that was coming up. God damn it.
I didn't really know.
Aaron, come out of the closet.
I have too many freaking clothes. This is my gear room, so it's all like optics here and camera gear, and then the closet's actually where my elbow is, wherever. But I had so much shit, I had to buy a shelf to put the rest of my clothes. So I'm feeling the need to move that before we start this, because it does. You can see all my footwear at the bottom.
Yeah, you got a good collection of shoes there.
Yeah, they're mountaineering boots.
It reminds me that of a woman.
Brian, don't lie. I know you. You have as much shit as I do.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman Podcast. We're here with Ike and Guy Eastman from Eastman's Hunting Journal, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal. What else? Eastman's Legend.
Hunting TV.
Don't forget about Scott and the digital media portion.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have Scott here. Scott Reeker. Is it Reekers or Reeker?
Reekers.
With an S.
Yeah.
Yep.
Scotty too hottie.
Scotty. Aaron and Scott seem to have a unique relationship.
They go way back.
Like a brother.
Once again, Aaron's in the closet.
It is a closet.
For those that are listening, Aaron looks like he's filming this from his closet.
I don't want to distract from the podcast with the Eastmans, but my wife was high maintenance. She wanted to live on a lake. I got screwed on space, and now I'm in the closet.
I like how he likes to blame his wife for this.
I blame her for everything. So do you guys.
So Aaron just got back from a bear hunt. where he was unsuccessful. We haven't got a recap on that just yet. I was curious, Aaron, how that happened. How did you come home empty-handed?
Oh, I killed one. Just couldn't find it. It's the struggle stick, man. It's tough. I hit one and it spun right when I shot. And I got too close initially. It was like 12 feet away, and not tell the whole story. Ran off. I huffed at it. It stopped, and it was relatively broadside when I shot, and then it spun and crapped on my dreams running up the hill with my arrow sticking out of it. I tracked it for like 400 yards, and in North Idaho, it's pretty thick, and I couldn't find it.
What about you guys, Guy, Ike? Have you guys been bear hunting this spring?
We still have too much snow. Yeah, a couple of the guys went up last weekend and couldn't get very far. The bears aren't out yet for us. It's kind of the bear season in Wyoming is kind of a joke because they give you in certain areas they give you from the 15th of April till the 15th of June, but you can't. The bears don't actually come out until the end of May, beginning of June. So you have like a 2-week season technically.
Yeah, I mean, aren't they still hibernating then?
Yeah,
we're actually heading up to Wyoming this weekend, Colton and I, to try to whack one. And I told them, I was like, dude, they're only going to be eating grass. They're just coming out of the den. They got to get the butt plug out and get their system flowing. Yeah. So hopefully there'll be grass somewhere.
Yeah, it's warmed up finally though. It's been wet and rainy and snowing for 2 weeks here, and finally today, yesterday afternoon and today it's sunny in the low 70s. So finally warming up. That'll help.
Nice. So for folks out there that are listening that are living under a rock and don't know who you guys are, introduce us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are, how you're involved in, tell us a little bit about Eastman's and, your relationship. Who wants to go first, Ike?
Sure. We're brothers. I don't know if anybody knows that. I actually get that question a lot. So which son are you? Are you Guy's son? No, we're brothers.
Well, at least Dad's looking old enough that they don't think he's our third brother now.
Yeah.
When I first started in the business, I thought he and I were brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how old are you, Ike?
Man down. We lost Ike.
40. I think he just turned 40 yesterday.
He looks like Stevie Wonder there. He's kind of moving his head.
A little Skype glitch.
We'll
man. Pick him back up. We lost you at how old you are.
I'm 38.
What?
He just added 2 years to your life. He said you're 40. Someone's lying.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm 39. I just turned 39 this weekend. I did just turn 39.
Like yesterday.
Yeah.
It was the 15th.
Yeah. It was Sunday, whatever. So
he's old enough to fish in Wyoming finally.
Yeah, I can finally get a lifetime fisherman's license here. I'm finally a resident.
So you're 39, and Guy, how old are you?
I think I'm 45.
So you're older than Ike, huh?
There's a sister in between us.
Got it. And okay, carry on.
So Grandpa filmed stuff in the 50s, filmed for Walt Disney wildlife stuff in the 60s, made his own theatricals, North of the Sun, spent a ton of time, I don't know how many years, but he spent a ton of time in northern Alaska at Point Hope with the Eskimos, documenting their way of life because he knew it was going away. And when he was doing it, I mean, they were still using dog teams, and I mean, there was no snowmobiles or any of that stuff yet. In fact, the snowmobile was barely invented in the lower 48, let alone up there. And then in the 80s, my dad was a contractor in Jackson, and he'd hate me saying this, but he actually went broke, and they lost their house and stuff, and so we had to move out of Jackson. And he started the magazine just before they left Jackson, and it's grown to what it is now. And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We moved to a little town in Wyoming called Thermopolis.
So what year was it that he started the magazine, roughly?
1987.
Okay.
I have at Kafaru, I think I posted a photo. Patrick kept all of them. He's always admired what Mike and Gordon have done, and so he kept all of them. And then when I was there, they were in dust, but he kept them. And so I've separated them in a kind of a glass case with some other, woodland camo-esque type of, memorabilia or whatever of back in that time or whatever. So it's pretty cool to look through them.
Yeah, it's come a long ways. I mean, it was a 24 pager on print, basically newspaper print, the first edition of it, and it's come a long ways with Dad and guys' creative sight behind it. I am not creative. I can't draw stick figures. I'm horrible at that, and so that's Guy's baby. Guy's the creative one that's in charge of the magazines and oversees the building of the magazines, building of the TV show, building of the content for the digital side. I'm the guy that does all the crazy business stuff. So keeps my thumb on Reekers and makes sure he's still selling ads and marketing to somebody.
Nice.
I can tell you he's marketing me all the time, so he's doing his job.
That's good. That's good. If we can get you out of that closet, we'll help you sell some of those packs.
I moved into the closet to afford to market with you. See, I got to stay in the closet.
So I'd like to say the reason that Aaron is selling so many packs is because he started working with Eastman's.
I tell you, that at some point in time, I'll remember I wrote an article about, the people who built the house that we all play in, like, your dad, your grandpa, Patrick and Dana Gleason, other people. And, that kind of started it all. I think, in my opinion, people forget where it started, a lot of things. And especially in today's day and age where with social media, things have changed a lot. And we'll get, we've been in business since 79. Like, did you guys just start? I'm like, yeah, we just started. We've been in business a while, where someone newer that just dumps the farm on marketing and can look newer or bigger, but are not because of the amount of money they put in marketing, social media, digital media, things like that, print media, whatever the case may be. It can have it can portray a different look than what's under the sheets and what actually, in your case, your readership is. In comparison, when I first heard what your readership is, I was like, get the flip out of here. No way. And your readership is phenomenal. In fact, I did some computing myself, and your readership alone is the size of 4 of your competitors combined.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. So
it's actually, our readership's bigger than, we have more subscribers out west than any other magazine, including Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, any of those. We have more subscribers out west. I mean, if you want to market to the Western market, the most effective way to do it is through one of our medias.
Well, and like Aaron said, Eastman's has been around a long time. I remember, like Aaron, there's a lot of young people that don't know anything about that kind of Eastman's side of it. There's a few out there that don't realize how long it's been there. They know about it, but they don't know how long it's been there. And it reminds me, like, I remember getting a compound and watching Eastman's TV and watching Guy, take off with, or watching South Cox and Cameron Haynes go on a mule deer hunt and that being part of Eastman's, and also watching Guy have Nate Simmons like run back for like a fishing pole out in the middle of no man's land in, what was it, Canada or Alaska? Yeah. And you guys are trying to catch some fish, and watching some of those early, for me, those are when I started to get more involved in following Eastman's was back when I started to see Eastman's Hunting TV, and I could download the shows off of iTunes, just like in the podcast section, and didn't really have TV, so I caught a lot through that medium. But yeah, it's been around for a long time. I remember my dad getting Eastman's Hunting Journal, so I'm kind of curious, like, as the magazine is growing, or changing, as we're moving into this digital era and stuff like that, how, like, with your readership, how are you bringing them along, and kind of where do you see the magazine going?
It's been it's been a chore, of course, because technology is changing and it changes really fast. One of the things that is really frustrating is you develop a technology. You guys know this because you're on the cusp of this. You develop a technology and tomorrow it's completely obsolete and there's something new. It's changing, but I think the core of our readers aren't as changing as fast as a lot of people. I think a lot of the growth in the hunting industry is a digital platform. But there's still a ton of guys from that 45 to 60 some year old that read our magazine, read it in print, and they're going anywhere else.
Totally.
I mean, you would be surprised how many people we actually don't have email addresses are. And we've worked diligently for 10 years to get email addresses. And, hey,
30% of them.
Oh, I believe it, dude. I believe it. Like, when we started the podcast, most of the people, when I started a little over like a year and a half ago, people were saying, "What's a podcast?
Yeah.
What is it? Like, how do I get to it?" And I started with YouTube, just putting it on YouTube because I knew most guys could figure it out.
Right.
And hopefully at some point, it was accessible to those guys. And then if they liked it and they wanted to keep following it, they could graduate from YouTube to like iTunes or Podbean or some other Stitcher or something else. But
right.
It was a real challenge at first because the technology barrier between, your old school hunters and your kind of, outdoor woodsman guys that didn't really do the digital thing.
Well, considering I'm in a job that I'm not capable of doing and winging it a lot, so I've been studying a lot. And so the people in the know that I've been talking to on the marketing side, digital media, they projected in the next 5 years there would be no radio. On the radio, you would have a podcast channel, and you would have a whatever that's called, the other radio. What's the radio? That you can XFM or whatever XM radio.
Satellite.
Sirius
Yeah,
XM.
Sirius. As you can see, I do not have one.
You're not
But that
allowed to
would be-
protect them every month.
Yeah, exactly. But that would be it. That would be what would go on now. And so on the podcast section on your radio, it would be that simple, and you would pick through your podcast, and your car stereo would record those podcasts to let you catch up. So there would be no plugging in your iPod or anything else. He gave me a long list of other things that he predicted to change in the next 5 years. And I can see it because I don't podcast. I was like, yeah, whatever. I've heard Joe Rogan a few times, and now I know the numbers that we get. And, of course, I'm thinking there's that many people that listen to me being a ding dong, like just basically being a goofball. But it is a way to, like in your case with, like the show, be able to be part of the family, be able to experience what you're experiencing and learn at the same time. And also, as far as hunting out west is such an intimidating thing for guys back east. Well, I mean, they're going to have a good idea, paying attention to Eastman's, reading the magazine, the digital portion, obviously on your website. And then on your forums, you can learn a lot just from the regular users that are on the forums, the members. You can learn a lot there. So you guys offer a pretty big package for anybody heading out west.
We get a lot of guys saying, man, I really love you guys' forum because the guys on there are always genuine. They're always willing to help. And there's like nobody lambasts them if it's a seemingly stupid question to a lot of them. Those guys kind of take them under their wings. And I've been really, really appreciative of our forum members for that. They do a really good job. And the guys that moderate it, Reekers and Trent Don, they do a really good job keeping the riffraff out and the antis, et cetera, et cetera.
So, before we get into, I kind of wanted to get to know you guys a little more, like what you guys do when you're not running the magazine.
I know what guys
there's something else.
He just had a kid.
Chase kids around and pretty much whatever everybody else does. I really like fly fishing, Ike, snowmobiles. I mean, we have other stuff we do. It's just not all hunting.
Do you guys hang out a lot together then?
No.
Every day.
At work.
Well, I don't know what people realize this. We're in the same building. It's just you guys wouldn't let us in the same room because, I don't know, for whatever reason, fisticuffs or whatever. No, we're in the same building. I'm in my office, guys in his. So it's not like we're on different sides of the country.
So, do you guys hunt together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once in a while.
Yeah.
Usually Ike, is here working on business stuff when I'm out hunting, but there's a couple hunts each year that we hunt together on.
Now, how much did your dad, like at what age did he start dragging your butts along with him, like birth or shortly after? Because I'm sure he didn't want to like not go. So I would imagine he was probably in a position where for him to go, he had to take you to at some point. But still, how young was he dragging you out?
Gosh, pretty young. I'm guessing. Geez, I started working with my grandfather before my dad. At that time, my dad was a contractor, so he was pretty busy even in the fall. He didn't hunt near as much as he did when he was younger or after he started the magazine when I was a kid. And so I ended up helping my grandfather quite a bit. I started packing batteries and cameras and film canisters. It was all old school 16 millimeter film at that point, when I was 8, 9 years old, way before I could ever hunt.
Was he a patient man, or was he comping in the noggin all the time?
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, he was harsh. A lot of people, it's funny, after someone dies, everybody always has different things to say about him. Oh, gosh, I would have really liked to have hunted with your grandfather. And I think, oh, hell no, you don't. There's no way. No way. Only an 8-year-old relative could have taken that kind of punishment. He was brutal. Now I know why he had family members help him. Yeah, I mean, he was pretty old school.
So tell me, what's your dad like then compared to your grandpa?
He's more mellow. He's changed a lot as he's gotten older, but at one point he was a chip off the old block. Yeah, just like I'm sure Ike and I are.
I had heard, and I talked to Ike about this. Like I had heard
from the bus
people. Well, I had heard he was kind of a a-hole, right? And but of course a lot of people have heard that about me too, and then they can see I'm a chucklehead on. But when I met him the first time, I was like, oh, that dude's a lot like me. He's pretty blunt to the point, which is easier for me to deal with. Than I'm probably a little more blunt than I should be, but he was cracking jokes about stuff, and I was like, oh man, that dude is super, super funny. And your dad, I've only talked to your dad a couple times, but he's the kind of guy where if you actually listen, you're going to learn a lot. But you better focus, because I could tell a couple times people were talking to him at shows and I was watching and they weren't really listening. And I could see your dad was ready to backhand him like, look, son, if I'm talking to you, you better listen or I'm going to stop talking.
You're starting to sound like our childhood.
Yeah. I was watching at the booth and I could see your dad. Maybe I was envisioning him backhanding this kid, but he was like literally trying to have a conversation. The kid started with him. And the kid's screwing with his phone or whatever, and your dad did not have time for that. I could see that right away, and you could tell. But he's a wealth of knowledge, obviously.
I always tell people that he's actually shy. He comes across ignorant or arrogant, but he's actually shy. He's really shy.
Yeah,
he's very shy until you get to know him.
And he was in Vietnam, right?
Yeah, two tours.
Yeah,
one of them is a door gunner.
Yeah,
he's got some stories.
So sure. I'd like to hear like a whooping story.
Who got spanked more,
right?
Ike or Guy?
Definitely Ike.
Yeah, I think I did. I was the youngest and thought I was invincible way longer than Guy did.
I come home from college. Of course, I'm 6 years older. No, 5 years, almost 6 years older. I come home from college. I see all the stuff Ike's getting away with in high school, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? There's no curfews, no nothing. I mean, this is a free-for-all. I didn't live under those rules.
That's the joy of the being the youngest. The downside of being the youngest is I don't have 80 photos of any one of my graduations. My baby book has 3 things written in it. Guys is like all filled out.
They were done parenting by the time you were.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh,
we've been there, done that.
Yeah. Oh gosh, please leave me alone.
So we talked a second about kind of the direction of the company that, as far as digital media, keeping caught up with all of that. But what what would you guys say has changed the most, both for the good and the bad in the industry in general, not just Eastman's, but your perception, what you see every day, good and bad? What's changed the most?
I would say probably technology, you know, in hunting. Technology is a good thing, but there is a line that has kind of started to get a little bit overboard. I mean, I remember the old days. There's no rangefinders, man. You went out with your bow. I mean, if you had two wheels on your bow, you were lucky. Most of them were just recurves, and you just had to guess at the range. I mean, nobody killed anything with their bow. That's why if you killed anything, it was like a freaking act of God.
I'm learning that right now with the struggle stick, that a doe is a victory. Like, you've done okay if you shot a doe. So
yeah. And I mean, shooting 500 yards with a rifle, that was out of the question, because you can't judge the difference between 500 and 610 with your eyeball very easy, and that's a missed shot, you know, with a 300 caliber bullet. But with range finding technology, now you can dial in, and I mean, that's just one example. I mean, you can go down the list of all the things that have changed dramatically in the last 25 years, and the game and fish agencies don't really, you know, keep up with what's going on out there. They just do it all managed by their little numbers and spreadsheets. But it's changed drastically. Like 100-yard bow shot, you would have been laughed out of a room for even mentioning something so ridiculous when I was in high school in 1988. That was impossible. People could barely make 100-yard rifle shots back then.
I'm not sure you could get my first bow to go 100 yards.
Yeah.
Like, now, 10 yards short. Yeah.
So what do you think for the good?
Well, for the good, probably the same thing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but, you know, hey, we bought our first camo when I first started bow hunting at Walmart, and it was just Army issue camo and cotton. No, we froze our asses off everywhere we went. It was terrible. The good thing, you know, as soon as it snowed, it was in September, it was bow season, 1st September, we go chase deer around. As soon as it snowed, you're done. You're not going out there anymore because you'd freeze your butt off. Yeah. But now, I mean, look at the technology we have in clothing, packs, boots, all this stuff that's light years ahead of what we could have done back then.
Well, I joined the Army in 94, I guess, and looking through, which isn't that much of a time difference, and you still suffer in the military, but really crappy boots, worst known to man. You know, all an Alice pack, which your dad probably used in Vietnam, that thing's the biggest hunk of crap known to man. You know, burn bloody marks back on your spine and fat roll or whatever. And then I look at what I have now, and I'll hike in and complain, and I'm like, I got $30,000 of gear in my backpack. I probably shouldn't be complaining. I got a $5,000 spotter. You know, I got a $800 backpack. My boots are $400, and it definitely has changed. It's more comfortable now. It makes you probably a little bit lazier too, but it definitely makes you more comfortable.
Yeah, people just didn't. I don't think before all this technology and equipment, people didn't go back as far as they go on foot now. I mean, they did it on horses. Well, that's a whole different ball of wax, but it's made hunters a lot more versatile than they used to be able to be, I'm sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Ike?
I think the gear's changed a lot for the good, but I think it's just allowing, this is kind of what Guy was saying, just to elaborate a little bit. I think it's allowing people to do things that we wouldn't have been able to do a long time ago, and that are, in my opinion, slightly questionable ethically. 1,000-yard shots and stuff like that. Does it work? Yeah, but is that have we changed from hunting to something else? I don't know. 12 yards from a bear that you had, that
12 feet, man, 12 feet. The brown eye about snapped.
Yeah, 12 feet from a bear. That's a completely different experience.
Well, and I can tell you, when it first came out at 78, I can tell you now, I would have just shot it last year. I would have just killed it at 78 yards.
Right.
I can shoot, softball groups at that distance, but one of the reasons I picked up the old struggle stick was to get a little bit closer. So it was definitely an experience, because when I walked up on Boo Boo, I about crapped my pants, one, because I didn't know he was there, but I would have never had that happen with a compound in my hand. One, I don't have the self-discipline to not shoot it at that distance because I know I can. And it would be easy to say, well, just scoot closer with your compound. I can't. I like to kill stuff, which is another podcast. I like shooting animals. And so it would be hard for me not to take that shot when I know I can make it, where with the recurve, you don't really have an option. You're going to get pretty close. So it's definitely a big difference. And I've been on hunts, which you guys know, guys, one of the guys shot his moose at 1,700 yards, a goat at 1,180, elk at 1,500. They're accurate, but it definitely is a different, it's a different skill level completely. In comparison to hunting with a lever action 30-30, which is what I was raised with, of an accuracy range of about what I'm accurate to with my compound. Trying to shoot a softball sized group with a lever action 30-30 at 200 yards, I can't
Iron
do
sights.
it. Yeah, iron sights. Yeah, it's just not happening. Where I can outshoot with my compound bow, guaranteed what my dad could do in 1985. I would take every bit of money he has in gambling at the same distance with my compound today. I have no doubt in my mind. So technology is definitely different.
Oh yeah.
What about this whole thing? Like outside the hunting. Like it seems that 20 years ago, the number of people who they just kind of, at least where I grew up, they're like, "You hunt? Oh, cool. Yeah, my grandpa or my dad or my brother used to hunt, or he hunts, or something like that." And I live in Portland, Oregon, so
sorry about that.
Yeah, which I won't be for long. I mean, I love Oregon in general, but the thing is, it seems like the disconnect with people out there and where food comes from and killing animals. And Aaron makes this statement like, "I like to kill things." Right. And,
so I'm supposed to cater that a little bit differently. I just keep forgetting.
Well, as a magazine, and you guys are out there. I remember back in the day when I would see magazines, old ones, hunting magazines, they'd have blood on the animal and the guy would have it in the back of his truck and there'd be a photograph and stuff. And now you have, these publications where, they're showing that animal in a different light, trying to clean the blood off of it. There's certain pictures they don't want to publish. I mean, what have you guys seen there, and what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's changed, over time as well. I think, it's hard for me to keep a gauge on that real well because I live in Wyoming. I kind of live like my dad said. We live in a bubble here, and everybody pretty much hunts and fishes. And the people who don't keep their pie holes shut, otherwise they get shipped to another state. So we don't
to Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Send them down your way, man. But I think a lot of people more so, obviously nowadays, are try to pay more respect to the trophy by cleaning it up and not riding it and putting the gun in the horns and the blood and the tongue hanging out in the back of the truck like the old days. But strangely enough, some of those old photos are really cool to look at. Some of those old black and whites and bucks over the top of the hood of the rig and parked in front of the bank in town. But the time's changing now. Whether the American public, I'm sure, is changing. It seems like the people in the gray area who don't care either way seem to be getting less. Now I can't decide. I think some of them have moved and become on the hunting side because they want to know where their food comes from and they want to feel better about themselves as being humans and a predator, or they go the other way and want to eat lettuce and live in a pup tent in San Francisco and pretend they don't have any carbon footprint, or some ridiculous thing like they don't flush a toilet like the rest of us. But, I don't know. I don't know how much that's changed exactly.
Well, we were going to do a podcast before this one on me potentially changing the way I come across when I say I like
giving you diversity training or something.
Well, no, dude, don't say it like that. I don't want Aaron to change. Aaron is a national treasure.
which nationalities we're trying to figure it out.
That's right. Well, but there's a certain amount of just authenticity that comes from Aaron that I don't want to see change. At the same time, this has come up multiple times out there in the world. There's this whole group of people that are non-hunters. Like, what do they say? Like 9 out of 10 are not hunters in the United States, 9 out of 10 people. So if that's the case, they're influencing whether public lands stay public, whether we can still hunt, whether we can hunt with dogs, whether we can kill bears and cougars, so on, right? They're those voters, those decision makers. And the reality that I see is they're the ones that get to make the choice for the rest of us to an extent because they outnumber us. So if that's the case, how they perceive us matters, even though I want it to not matter, right? Like, dude, I go get my meat myself. I bring it home. I eat it. There's nothing to be ashamed of in that. And yet it's like, I got to alter it a little bit. When Aaron says, I like to kill animals and bring them home, it can come across the wrong way. But the truth is he does.
But my point is, not to detour from the podcast, you guys can chime in, but if you played basketball and you sucked at it, never made a basket, you probably wouldn't be having much fun. But if you had a 50-point game, I bet it was funner than the game you had where you didn't score any. So if you hunt and you don't kill anything, it's not going to be as fun unless you kill something. And I don't know why there's an issue with me being indifferent to how the animal feels compared to someone that's very sympathetic. I don't care. But are you sympathetic, meaning the mid-road or the anti-hunters, when you eat a steak? Because that poor little bastard had a life too, but it was in a farm, who lived his life wholesale and then got slaughtered. But are you sympathetic to the steak? So why do I have to be sympathetic to the animal? At least I killed it. Like, I'm going to eat it just like you do. It's just you kill yours with a checkbook. I kill mine with a bow.
When Aaron kills an animal with a bow, he doesn't cry afterward. And he's like, if a guy cries after he kills it with a bow, then he should also cry before he eats his burger.
They all had life. So my point being is, if I had a choice tomorrow to live my life in a cage and get slaughtered wholesale, or go out in the woods and die like a warrior, well, I'm going to go out in the woods and die like a man, not live my life in a cage and die a wholesale, which is how we get our meat today. Well, not we. I mean, obviously, you get 300-400 pounds of meat in the freezer, but it seems to be the disconnect from how we get our meat in today's society is it dies of natural causes or it's made up in a machine. They don't really realize that it had a life once on a farm or in a chicken coop or whatever. It had a crappy life probably for the most part. And then in the case of, I think they get a stainless steel spear through the noggin on cattle. Well, so I'm bad because I just go out and I shoot an animal and I come home and eat it. And I don't have as much sympathy towards the animal. It's not like I hate the animal and I want to see the population decimated. I also care about conservation. It's just come up that maybe I'm not as sympathetic as I should be towards the animal. I can understand that. But you should also there lay down and pray before your burger before you eat it, because that had a life too. You just didn't take it. So anyway, that's where Brian's coming from with people's opinion coming in about what I say.
I think what you're saying is just a very, I guess, a snippet of what you actually mean. What you're saying isn't what you mean. What you're saying is I kill animals and bring them home. Yeah. What you're saying is I kill meat and bring it home for my family. The difference between my meat and your meat is who's killing it. That's it. The other difference is my animal had a very likely chance of dying of old age. The majority, and I don't know the percentage, but it's got to be huge, the percentage of animals that are dying of old age or the elements or disease versus being taken from a hunter. One of the things, the beautiful things about hunting is management of a species. We have populated this country. I mean, there used to be deer hang out in New York City before they built all the buildings. Okay. Those deer went somewhere. And if we don't manage those populations as the populations either grow like whitetail and elk, if we don't manage them, that's going to be an issue not only for us, but it's going to be an issue for them, because those animals will get diseases, and natural selection will happen. And if anyone's ever seen a diseased animal die, it is way more heart-wrenching than a bullet. Way more heart-wrenching.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just I cut it down shorthand and don't tell the entire story. But
it's a soundbite.
Yeah, I guess, and it could be a bad soundbite depending upon how it's taken. I was raised hunting, and that's what you did, and you know, it wasn't a fad, right? That's just what you did. It wasn't the new cool Paleolithic CrossFit. I'm going to go and eat nothing but it was what you did. That's how you fed the family. That was your life. Where now, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, but I go to the CrossFit gym or the gym here, and they're enamored that I'm a hunter. And they're like, you eat your own meat? And I'm like, well, dude, you got 2 legs, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, go buy a weapon and go kill your own meat. And they're like, that's a good idea. But before the conversation, they didn't think it was humanly possible. They just had no idea you could even go hunting. There's so much of a disconnect in today's society. I'm like, are you, I'm trying not to make jokes. I'm like, are you serious? It's like, you just go buy a license at Walmart and go find an animal and shoot it. And there's been a big swing in Colorado, both in the positive and negative. We're not in a bubble. You get everything here, but you do get the CrossFitter REI backpacker that is all of a sudden now seen Zuckerberg wants to kill every animal so he can eat what he's killed. Like, that's a damn good idea. I'm going to do that now. And, they'll come to me, people that know I'm a hunter at the mountaineering store because I'm always over there, and they'll ask me advice on what to do. They think it's great. They're like all for it. They want it part of life now. Like it's going to be something they're changing, where Brian is worried about the perception of people that don't know me well enough and my views. When I just say, well, I like killing stuff, that could be definitely perceived in a negative way.
Well, and the thing that a lot of people don't understand is nutritional value of wild game versus domestic game is off the charts. You want smart kids, feed them venison. There's way more omegas in venison than anything else. It is truly the first version of organic. I mean, if you want to be an organic person, go take some organic meat. Go hike to 10,000 feet and shoot a mule deer that's never even seen anything that is petroleum based.
Just don't send those yum-yums from your CrossFit gym into my elk area.
Well, on that note, let's talk about your MRS section and where that came from. Because I believe you have sent some people into my area.
Not intentionally.
No, we should probably switch off of this.
Yeah.
The MRS section, because I get questions about it all the time. It is good because it is a huge tool for a person that is not up on potential areas to go to, what they're looking at, so on and so forth. I mean, you guys go over quite a bit of stuff in that. And I think some people are maybe a little bit confused by it. Other people get it right off the bat. Why don't you guys explain where that initially came from and what it does?
Well, initially, my dad started it in the magazine way, way back, or a version of it, which was pretty remedial at that point, where it just listed like top 5 or 6 areas in most of the western states for each species. Because people, that's another thing that's changed. When I was a kid, guys hunted in their home state, maybe the neighboring state, with the exception of Californians and people back east. But people didn't hunt prolifically like they do now. Now, they apply for all the states, all the species, everywhere out west, and so guys didn't know where to apply for elk in Nevada, and everything then was back then was on paper application. So it was really cumbersome to apply. You had to send a check, front all the money, paper application, postmarked by this date, a cashier's check, on and on and on. And so we started that to kind of help people. And then it kind of blossomed into what it is now, which is basically all the information you need to apply for all the Western states, all the species. I mean, it gives all kinds of, not just the areas, but season dates, draw odds, how many points it takes, what the success rates are, how much public land is in that area, what the buck to doe or bull to cow ratios are, what type of country the area is, all that type of information that's pretty important for people to make a decision. Because now, in the old days, there was no preference points. Now they have preference points. And believe me, you get 22, 23 preference points in Arizona, you're going to really want to study where you apply. If you make a mistake, you're going to burn all those points for nothing.
So, Aaron, for people who don't know what that section is, describe it to them.
You want me to do it?
Yeah. From your perspective.
A member's research supplement, which really, if you skip that verbiage, it basically makes you not make any stupid decisions when you go to apply for an out-of-state or in-state, whether you're resident or non-resident. It gives you some guidelines. And the closest way I describe it to people with all the emails I get is if you're looking to go buy a car and you have no idea where to buy a car and you want to know what has the best cars, what has the most cars, what has the best prices, so on and so forth, the MRS section will lay that out for you to where, let's say you want to go to a place that has more trucks than it does, whatever, EcoFlux or whatever cars. You can look at that and it'll tell you right dealership to go to. The MRS section does that for animals, units, and states. It literally simplifies like, okay, I've got 4 points. This unit takes 2, but right here says here's the buck to doe, bull to cow ratio. Here's the harvest percentage, so on and so forth. It gives you some guidance, at the very least, the initial groundwork to make your decision. You can fine tune it from there, but it'll at least point the compass in a certain direction so you're not wandering around aimlessly.
Well, and each person is unique. I mean, just in your car scenario, you may be looking for a truck where the next guy's looking for a Prius. I don't know, whatever. So
or a
it's
Subaru.
Yeah, Subaru. So it's each person's unique, I guess, goals and what states they want to apply and what they're looking for.
Yeah. So, what kind of an epic pain in the butt is that each year for you guys?
There's about, as near as I can estimate, there's about 2,000 man hours of work in that thing every year. Yeah. Between all the guys that write it. So I mean, it's a lot of it. You can get the information on the internet, but would you want to? I mean,
I was just going to say, you'll call people that have feet on the ground, boots on the ground, friend of yours in units, and say, hey, just get some verbiage from people you trust of, hey, how's this unit doing this year? What do you guys think for the MRS? Right?
Yeah, they'll call a lot of the biologists and guys that we know that live in or near the area that are boots on the ground and kind of,
That's how they ended up in your elk area, right?
Yeah, well, that's the only reason I brought that up.
Phone calls.
You got to quit answering your phone.
Yeah, no, I've been lucky. As you guys know, I'm a horrible trophy hunter, so don't call me. You'll shoot a raghorn. So stay out of my units. That's all that's there.
They taste good, though.
Yeah, and there's been people out there who do, here's the top 5 areas in Wyoming for deer, and anything else you put in for is a waste of your time. And that's not really what we found is that we don't want to take that route because I don't want to ruin everybody's odds of getting a tag. And like Ike said, everybody's unique. What one guy's looking for isn't what the other guy's looking for. Some guys, they don't want to wait 12 years to hunt deer. They want a good area they can hunt every 3 or 4 years. Those are not the same units. And so we break down not all, but most of, if not all, the units in the whole area and grade, or the whole state, and grade them. So, like, I'll hunt. Blue chips would be the best. Our blue areas, are greens good, yellow's marginal, white's not or poor. I hunt most of the time in the middle. I don't hunt up at that's those top level areas. They take years, decades to draw.
Well, the one thing you brought up with some of the other people that or whatever brands that, here's the unit, draw this unit type of a thing. This is the one. And it skews the draw odds so freaking bad that, I mean, it can have a hell of a swing. And you guys don't do that. So from a biased opinion of a hunter that has his happy units, you guys don't screw it up like try to keep myself from getting in trouble and getting hateful emails. Some of the other places will just say, this is the unit, put in for this unit. Well, then you had the year before 180. This year you've got 690. So all these poor bastards that were sitting in front of the computer like we all do, running numbers of what happened the year before, that's skewed and out the window. You just went from a 78% chance to draw to a 36 because somebody put in a magazine, this is the unit you want. Everybody should draw here. And what I found too that you guys don't do that I've seen some of the others, they may or may not twist that a little bit for their own greater good of the unit that they hunt. If that makes any sense. Like,
I understand.
Yeah.
I had to move my elk area up from a green to a blue a couple years ago, and it just completely changed the landscape on that. But I just found a different area to hunt.
I was going to say, I know you guys don't do that. I pay pretty close attention to the MRS. You don't skew it to your own greater good. You don't pull I mean, you're honest.
We don't have an axe to grind. I mean, our own hunting, but why there's so many areas in so much country to skew it for your own hunting is just retarded. But if you were skewing it for monetary purposes, if you had working with an outfitter in a certain area, or if you were selling tags in a certain area, those things, you can skew your readership to move them into certain things because of that.
It sounds something like this. Oh, you drew that area we told everybody to put in for? Congratulations. Now you need to go with this outfitter that we booked for, and we're going to take 10% of that too.
Yeah.
Well, that was exactly what happened in a case.
Because there's nowhere to hunt.
Of a guy that I met in the middle of all of this, and I ended up taking him on we were on a goat hunt. And during that day, the first day, we had seen 196 goats. And according to who he went off of, this was a prime area for a billy. Well, in that area, we saw 176 plus goats, whatever, plus or minus. And there was only 196 goats in the unit. Well, unless we just happened to somehow miss all the giant billies that were left over, which was about 25 to 30, there was some miscommunication in the stats and the trophy potential of this area. And I'm like, dude, you pretty much see it, right? I'm like, no, they told me this. And I'm like, well, they lied. Like, 44-inch goat here is a big goat. You should probably shoot one of these goats. And I don't think people understand, like for Colorado, it's not a trophy goat unit. Occasionally you pop out a decent one, but it's not a trophy goat unit. So I think the other thing is when people say this is a trophy potential unit, that's all relative. Trophy in Colorado goat unit could be a 5.5-year-old 45 inch billy. Trophy potential in another unit could be a 50+ inch billy that's 9.5+ years old. So they do leave out some of the fine print of trophy in one area might not be a trophy in another, I guess.
Or from state to state.
Yeah, exactly.
Big ram in Montana is a totally whole different level than a big ram in Wyoming. Wyoming's killed one 200-inch ram, one in its entire history, and it was killed in the 1800s, and I'm not too sure they just accidentally did a typo, and it was really from Montana anyway.
Yeah.
And Montana will kill a handful of them each year.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Usually Aaron has to pee if we've gone on for more than like 45 minutes.
No, I shut the window. What would you say the biggest ram you've seen in Wyoming is?
I've seen one close to 190. 188, 187, I think it was. Late ended up shooting it.
Yeah.
But that's top end.
Colorado's we're in the same boat. We're not. And I feel horrible because, I go on a goat hunt, sheep hunt or two every year in this area with friends. Somebody always draws. And they're realistic to the fact that you got a bow in your hand and it's in the 160s. You better jerk dirty because you may not see another one. There's just not a lot of rams here unless you draw a real premier unit. And I think people watch the Montana hunts more than they probably should, where guys are passing up 185, 188 type rams. There's only one area like that, or one state, and it's certainly not Wyoming and Colorado.
No. And that actually, Aaron's a good point. That goes back to what we talked about earlier, some of the changes in the industry. This is more not the industry, but the the sport or whatever you want to call it is, I think people have unrealistic expectations this day and age because they read too many magazines like mine, probably. And, unless you realize that those are the true freaks of nature, you read enough of that, see enough of it on the internet, you begin to believe that's the expectation and that's realistic. And I'll tell you what, even in this day and age, a 360 bull is not realistic in most places. A 170 mule deer is still a good buck.
Yeah.
And there's guys will say, well, if it's not 200, I don't even want to look at it. Well, you can be in an area that doesn't even have a 200. People are so outlandish with some of their expectations that they really set themselves up to be disappointed.
Well, and trophy hunting aside, because I'm the world's worst trophy hunter, but I am in the field more than almost anyone. And I'm like, how many deer I've seen over 200 inches on the hoof and easy to draw tags? In Colorado, maybe one a unit, maybe two, some are hiding around in the second choice type tags that you can draw. And I'll get guys that'll email me, and I feel bad to say it, but they'll say, hey, I'm not looking for a 190 buck here. It's my first trip out. I just want to kill a respectable buck with my bow over 170. And I'm like, oh, really? So am I. They don't, or it's like the guy calling in or asking me about weightlifting. I'm going to start going to the gym, but I don't want to look like Arnold. Well, don't worry about that, buddy. That took a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
No one's going to look like Arnold from Planet Fitness.
Yeah, it'll take you forever.
That's a very good parallel there.
Well, I got to deal with it with like you guys every day. And it's like, hey, look, if you get in there and you see a 4-point that's out by his ears, I'd probably shoot it unless you've seen 30 of those, because 145 to 155, 60-inch deer for your first buck out west on a high country mule deer hunt is a relatively respectable deer, especially when you start getting in that 160 range. I mean, what is Pope and Young, 145?
I think it's 145, I think.
Right. And I mean, coming from the guy that kills 145 to 160-inch buck every year, I'll see a bigger deer, and there's no doubt if I kept my head out of my butt and put enough effort in, I could probably kill a 170 to 180 type deer. But you look at some of the greater high country mule deer hunters, they only hunt mule deer. That one hunt may take it's not like they're killing 6, 4, 5, whatever, 180 plus bucks a year. They're usually good for one deer a year that's like that, maybe one every 2 or 3 years.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's a really sad thing that's happened, I think, especially with the younger generation. I know everybody bitches about the younger generations. I might have to jump in on that too. But, there's such a different mindset, the instant gratification that they don't, like you said, you were just bringing up, that story is a lot of these guys don't want to start from the ground and work their way up. Hey, what happened to killing a spike bull with your bow? My first bull was a 1x2. I was on cloud 9. I didn't start right out wanting to shoot a 6-point. You work your way up from there. But a lot of these guys now, I see kids coming in, they want to go right to the 350. Like my dad said, I think it was this year at the shows or something. We were talking to some guys, and after we left the show, he said, man, since when did a 350 bull just become a so-so bull? When did that happen? I mean, the 350s used to be the freaks of nature, ended up in magazines.
I think you guys have had two of my – I was a horrible writer at the time, so I got the crappy section in the back, the honorable mention. Very – well, I have somebody else write my stuff now.
We spent a lot of time on yours. No.
No kidding. I think you've had one or two of mine in there, and I was on – they were both like 340 bulls on over-the-counter tags. And I mean, for me, I'm like – it's a big deal for me because I'm not a great trophy hunter. 1, 2, you might see him scouting, but you don't see very many bulls that big. And then I'll talk to guys and they'll be like, yeah, I might shoot one like that. And I'm like, is this your first hunt out west? And I'm like, if it's brown, it should be down. You need to get some blood, some animals on the ground under the trigger. And they're like, well, what do you shoot every year? And I'm like, generally every 4th year I shoot a big elk because every 4th year I draw a good tag. The other years I shoot a 5-point, 6-point, whatever on a backpack hunt type of a thing. And I'm not a good judge of that. But too many Primos videos, nothing wrong with Primos. but they shoot big elk all the time, but it's not on public land. I think people sometimes might get the perception that those are public land, over-the-counter type tags, and they're not. They're doable tags, but they're not achievable by everyone coming out west.
Yeah, if you're going to really go for those top-end trophies, and I mean that is like 180-plus deer, 340-plus elk, 80-plus antelope, you have to be in a good area that you know, not like you just dropped in there because you drew the tag last week, and B, you better be ready to eat the tag. Yeah. You know, I do my lectures, I tell people that you have to come to that conclusion in your mind and settle your mind on that possibility of eating a good tag, because that's part of what it takes to succeed at that level. And most guys won't. They just won't. If they put 10 years into drawing that tag, they are not going to eat it. And by day 3, they've got hunt panic, and they're recalibrating their initial goals.
Well, a friend of mine, Fred Boehm, he shot his first mule deer was like 203. And the guy's a physical machine. What training camp, he's just, it is depressing to hike behind him at 13,000 feet. He doesn't get winded. He goes forever. He was a big wall climber. And I'm like, Fred, was this your first mule deer? He's like, yeah, I know, right? And he's pretty mellow about it. And I'm like, what'd you do? He's like, oh, I don't want to even talk about it. He goes, I had to sleep 3 nights by a rock because of where the deer was coming out of the wood line. He said, I watched it for 3 days and patterned it. The next 3 days, I slept by the same rock every day, hoping it would come by. And on the 3rd day, it came by and I shot it. That's a commitment that no one is generally ready to do. Who's going to sleep by a rock without no camp or whatever at 12,000 feet waiting for this deer to come by for 3 days to shoot it? So he earned it. And I'm like, would you do it again? He's like, I don't think so. He's like, that was some of the worst nights of my life.
My first and last.
Oh yeah, and he was 11 miles in solo. So I think I didn't screw that story up too bad. And Fred is he has a lot going for him. Very patient, physical fitness wise. The guy's a freak, and obviously he knew what to do as far as patterning him. That's a one story out of what, 1 million a year of guys, whatever it is, that come out and try. It's not 1 million, but a lot. And I think people probably should take stuff like that into consideration. So anyway.
And that's why a story like that would show up on our magazines, because it is unique. You know, it's not common. It's pretty unique.
I think it did, actually.
It did.
Brian, you look bored. What are you thinking?
No, not at all. I was just thinking about that same thing. Like, I just don't understand the obsession about inches. I'm just not a guy. Like, I told you about this last year, Anthony, my hunting partner, we were off chasing this bull elk that was like 350, 60 inches. We're chasing this bull in this unit where he's like one of the biggest bulls there, and he's this bull that people have been trying to kill for like 10 years. I mean, he's been a big bull for a long time. He's even regressed. He was like 385 at one point, and now but Anthony wants to kill this particular bull. And so we spend like 3-4 days chasing this bull, and it lived that long for a reason. Like, it was hard to kill this bull. And I saw a bunch of like 320 bulls, and I was just as happy with chasing one of those 320 bulls as I was this 350 bull. And we're talking about 30 inches of antler mass. I mean, I get like chasing, like seeing an animal, seeing like a certain antler formation that just sort of gets you excited, right? Like, but overall, just, I don't know, size I don't see the huge difference between a 350 bull and a 370 bull. It's big deal. They're big bull elk. They're both
There's a big difference in your tip on my side of things. When you,
people care a lot. They care a lot. They'll pay, thousands of dollars for that extra 15 inches. I just don't get it.
I
know on some of the hunts that go ahead.
I think one of the things that you have to understand is you're probably in a different place in your hunting life than maybe your buddy is. Seeing this for 3 generations is a lot of guys. They'll start and they'll start a key. It's kind of like golf or any other sport.
Yeah.
You start and you make a 3-throw. You're like, that is awesome. Wow, that was cool. Maybe next game I can shoot 2, and maybe the game after that I can shoot 3. And pretty soon you're trying to beat Michael Jordan's freaking 32 points a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I suppose if I had shot a bunch of 350 bulls, then shooting another one would be like, I just don't want to. I want to go for that next up. But I know a lot of guys who have shot maybe 2 bulls and they still chase that 370 instead of that 350. That's the part I don't get. It's like, you haven't killed so many. You haven't had so many experiences that you should pass on the 350.
I don't know. I've killed big ones and I still shoot whatever the hell. I'm horrible trophy. I think for me, genetically, it's just not in me to trophy hunt. I'm a great helper when I don't have the weapon, but I black out and it starts hitting the ground. It's bad, but I'm a great guy to have with you. Just don't ever put the weapon in my hand, and I'm good. I can judge well, and I can know animal behavior. But Robbie Dinning has given me, for example, so much crap. Last year's the first time I truly tried to shoot a giant, and I passed up so many deer. One of them was probably a 170 buck. We got good photos. And the moment it walked by, I'm like, what did I just do? What did I do? I should have never let that thing walk by. And it was a good deer. It would have been the biggest deer I've ever shot. And of course, I missed a really big one, but it's not genetically in me to trophy hunt. I just suck at it. I've shot a ton of animals, but my buddy Derek, he's the world's greatest trophy hunter, and he held to it, 200 or bust. That was his goal. Well, he's hunted 7 years. You know how many 200-inch deer he's killed? Yeah. Now I hand it to him. I'm not I'm not knocking on him. It's just that is his goal, and he's obviously staying true to the task.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm, I think negatively towards somebody who wants to hold out for that extra 5 inches or 10 inches of horn or whatever. I knock yourself out. I'm all for it. Do what you like to do. I just think a big bull's a big bull, a big buck's a big buck, and whether one's got 20 inches more than the other, it's not a big enough of a deal to change my experience on the hunt,
And I think that's the important thing. I think when you lose the appetite for the adventure and the experience, and then it's only about the inches, then you better take up golf or something else.
Yeah.
I understand both sides of it, because sometimes I get caught up in a hunt and it was big bull coming in. It's a 330 bull, and it was such a great experience that I get caught up and I get glazed over like Aaron, and bang, it's down. Even though I know there's a 350 in there somewhere that I had seen. And then other times I'm, trying to better my best. Just like running a marathon, you're trying to always better your time, but sometimes you just get caught up in the race and just have a good time and don't care about the time, but I think some guys get caught in a trap where it's only about the inches, and then they've lost what the sport really is about. They've lost track of what makes it hunting.
I'm pretty sure Dan Picard and Scotty Too Hottie immediately texted me after I shot my bull this year, because the sun hadn't even crested the horizon. It wasn't exactly a giant. They're like, what happened? I'm like, I panicked.
I went black and things started dying.
There was too many elk in front of me. They were running around like 20, 25 bulls, and finally one stood out there. I mean, Colt and I passed up a bunch going by, but man, it stood out there too long bugling. I'm like, okay. Now you're provoking me. I'm going to have to shoot you.
That's what Guy was saying is one of the things that my father and my grandfather instilled in us is this is a way of life. We're actually outdoorsmen. Hunting is part of that, but we fish, we snowmobile, we do all kinds of stuff outside. I always tell a story about when you traveled with my dad as a kid, he would always quiz you on things. For instance, where does this river go? What ocean does this river end up in? And we're talking Wyoming, so you're at the headwaters of all three of the major water systems. So you had to know, all right, where did the Snake River? Where does it end up? Where does the Green end up? Where does the Bighorn end up? Or, silly things like, hey, when is a porcupine rut? Well, a lot of guys go, I have no clue, and why would you want to know that? Well, that's stuff that we as kids got drilled into us.
More importantly, how does a porcupine breed?
Yeah. I hope it's upside
carefully.
down. So, that kind of stuff it's in a way of life and it's outdoors. It's hunting is part of it, but it's not the only thing that's primary. We're fortunate enough that we made a living at doing this. And it's part of it, but there's a lot of stuff. Guy loves to fly fish, and he's a really, really good fly fisherman. In fact, I quit going with him and his wife because they're not fun. Because I catch one and he catches 20, or I catch one little tiny one. I'm all proud about it, and he's caught 3 fish over 5 pounds. I'm just going, oh, never mind. So it's that kind of thing.
If you guys were to sort of take a step back and look at your magazine, look at Eastman's Hunting Journal, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, what would you guys say is unique about Eastman's? What stands out? What's different than a lot of the other publications that are out there?
I would say probably authenticity. We try to keep it authentic and, in a traditional generational form. Unfortunately, like we talked about earlier, we've talked about inches 1,000 times in this podcast. Hey, a 150 mule deer is a great buck. A 160, 160, all those are great bucks. Unfortunately, it doesn't sell magazines. It isn't, does the guy want to read that story?
Right.
No, he wants to read the story of Aaron's buddy who slept by the rock and shot a 203. So there's a difference between, Ike and I have to walk a fine line constantly between the commercialization aspect of the company, which is, adding value to the business, bringing readership in, making a profit for us and our employees, and employing all the families that we do, and also trying to keep it real. So it's not just all about the inches. And I don't know if we've been as successful as I wish we could have been on that, because I think that some of this all about the inches, I'll be the first one to admit that we've kind of played into that because of the nature of the business. The guy wants to read about the 203.
No, you're right. You're right. Look at that. That whole, what was it, Wyoming Instagram. There was that dude who
High country.
Yeah, shoots that elk on the farm and then drags it off and pretends like he shot it on a mountain, and it's like, but like go big or go home or something like that. Or there's this pressure, right, to shoot this giant 400 plus inch bull. And there was a lot of reward that came out of that before he got caught. Right. So it sells flat out. In the hunting community, that sort of epic animal gets attention. But I think that's that thing where, there's so much more to it than that. And when you see magazines and you see those with a platform focused on that too much, that's where, people lose sight of, I think, what it's really all about, or can, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, how do you handle that?
Very delicately, and I think it changes, depending on what we're doing in the business. It varies slightly, but we try to incorporate the younger generation section in the magazine, which is just about the kids. That's not about the trophy and whatnot. And we've brought in that section, the My DIY in the back, where that's not about the size of the trophy. It's about the adventure and the guys that went out and did it on their own. No guides, public land, did it the hard way, so to speak, and that kind of thing. And so we try to mix in as much of that flavor as we can without, making, tearing too deep into that. But, it's like I always say, you could always kind of flesh out a situation or an issue by taking it to its extremes. And this is the one I use on people is, okay, you have two hunters, Hunter A, Hunter B, okay, elk hunters. Hunter B has killed 6 bulls over 360. He's been for 20 years. He's a good hunter. I mean, 6 bulls over 360, public land, DIY, that's a real feat. Hunter A has killed a bull every single year for 20 years and fed his family with it. Which is the better hunter?
I'm going to say the one guy because that's me.
Exactly. So my point is that I don't think that everyone's not going to choose the guy who shot the 360s. I don't even think half will. I think the guy who shot the 20 bulls every year, spikes up to 320 and fed his family with them might be the better elk hunter because that may be more of what it's about. And so we can't, those are two extremes, but you can't lose. Most people are in between there somewhere, but it kind of puts into light what hunting is about and in the extremes that we can see in that situation.
What are you guys looking for then when you have someone, when you're taking like reader stories?
Photo quality is number one.
That's what I tell anybody that calls me about Eastman's. I'm like, if you don't have good photos, it's going to be difficult, buddy.
Oh, man. When people started first taking photos with their phone for about 5 years, it was brutal. Now these new phones, you can put a photo on a cover with the new iPhone 6S or the new Samsung. But there for a while, it was like, there's nothing we can do with it.
They got their flip phone out.
Yeah. So photos are number one. Then story, then trophy quality is pretty much how we rate it.
And then might as well talk about this. What are you guys looking for? What's a good amount of photos to send in? What's a correct amount plus or minus total words in your article? Like 750, 1700. And then how many photos do you prefer? Quality photos, not crap photos. How many quality photos do you guys like to get with an article?
Word count, we'd like to see about 1,000 to 1,500 words, and we may cut it down. Some of the sheep stories, they'll come in 4,000 or 5,000 words. Like they start off with the guy
his birth
in diapers and move on through his whole life and to this, everything culminated to this sheep. That's just the way sheep guys are. But most of our stories, we actually print them around 1,000 to 1,200 words, but we like to see 1,500 so we can cut down. It's a little hard for editors to add words into a story to fluff it up, but we can always trim down. And then when it comes to photos, we ask for everything you have just because we like some lifestyle type photos in the field, not just grip and grins, but camp and hiking and glassing and that kind of stuff to soften it a little. And a lot of guys don't. They just want to send what they think are the 3 best trophy shots and call it good.
One of the biggest problems that people have is they forget to take photos when they're hunting. And then they get home and all they have is they have their memories, but the photos they can share with their kids or with their wife or with their parents or their buddies, taking photos of everything, taking photos of a campfire, Aaron's really good at this, just taking photos of everything so that you can remember it. So 10 years down the road, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Was it a campfire or was it a stove? That kind of stuff. And it helps not only lead the story, bring the story up, but it also helps people understand that when you're all excited about a hunt, it helps them grasp it too.
I just try to do it just so people can kind of, same thing you guys do with the TV show. I hate filming is, kind of keeps them motivated for what we're all out here for. And, that, and I like taking photos. The greatest thing is the guy that's giving me crap the entire hunt about taking photos. And at the end of the hunt says, can you send me those? And I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
No, I can't actually. Yeah. Cause it is a pain, not for them, but most people aren't used to the camera, but it's a lot, as you guys know, filming's worse, but I've got 16, 18 pounds of camera gear on top of a 48, 52 pound pack weight, depending upon the photo, the camera gear I'm bringing. So I think people need to understand in the case of like with what you guys want, maybe is you don't need to pack a $5,000 DSLR, camera body lens. You just need good quality photos that aren't blown out too bad with high, basically in RAW if possible, so you can edit those photos. So there's a lot of data there to work with. And I think it's getting on, and obviously is growing the photography thing for what you guys need. You could have a semi crappy blown out photo that's 14 megabytes because you guys can fix that compared to a thumbnail that looks great. You can't do much with it. You can't blow up a thumbnail. So
Well, people get confused. They think they can put it on their screen. It looks great on my computer. Well, when you start make it into dots with a printer, it doesn't look great anymore.
Yeah. That's one thing I've learned is I run the camera a lot to film. So I got my DSLR out there, expensive lenses, and I'm filming every moment. And I have tons of video. And I can take screenshots from the video that are gorgeous, amazing screenshots. But those things cannot be blown up for like a magazine or print the way that Aaron's photos can be done. Right. And so, just taking the moment to actually snap shots with my camera in RAW gives me that, a lot better product, for print quality stuff, which is totally different than internet.
Yep. With an internet, the flip phone photos were good enough.
Yeah. Scott mentions something about Outdoor Edge knife for Eastman's preseason special. Tell us about that.
We're developing. We've done it for the last 3 years. I don't know, 3 or 4 years, where we've given away a knife with a subscription. And this year we're going to do it again. We have a slight change. We worked with Outdoor Edge this year and built a unique Eastman knife you can only get through Eastman's. It's still replaceable blades like it has been, but it's unique with the Eastman logo, and it's going to be pretty cool. It's been a huge success over the last 3 or 4 years that we've done it with them. It's a great product, and it works. I mean, you subscribe and get a knife. Who can't? I mean, has anybody ever had too many knives? Is that even possible?
Especially when the blades change on.
Yeah,
replaceable blades. You don't even have to sharpen them.
But you can.
Yeah.
So, and that comes with the subscription, and people can find that where?
Eastmans.com.
Eastmans.com.
Yep.
So, another thing that he mentioned that I wanted to get out here was, what's it like to be a hunt winner?
I don't know. I've never been one. I don't. It's fun. I'll let Guy talk about that. I'll just add one thing. I get the joy of going on the EBJ Hunt Winner, but I don't have to be. Guy goes with them, and I don't film it. I'm doing something else with an advertiser at the same time, so I get to watch it from the outside in. It is really fun to watch those guys. You put a camera on just a regular Joe, and they everybody reacts completely differently.
Right,
it's fun.
They get pretty intimidated at first. You start putting a camera in front of their face and take them on an elk hunt, and they're pretty lock up usually pretty well. But then after about a day or two, they're mellowed out and get into the groove of it and have a lot of fun. And that's one thing I've learned on those hunt winter hunts is I just kind of let the guys do their own thing. It's real easy for me to kind of become a backseat driver on that and be like, oh, I wouldn't shoot that bull. Let's not shoot that bull. And pretty soon I'm like, man, am I hunting for me or this guy? Because they're going tinkling their pants every time a 320 comes in screaming its head off. And I'm like, it's a young bull. Let's let that one go. I wanted to shoot that one. So I've kind of eased up on that a little bit, but I try to, we try to keep it in a range where it's a really nice bull for the area, like we talked about earlier. I mean, it's so I back them off a little bit, but I try to let them experience it up close and personal, and they have a good time. It's a really good program and a lot of fun just to draw a name out of the hat. I'm sure we have some jerks in that database somewhere, but we've never drawn their names for some reason.
We've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah, we've gotten really good guys every time. We do 2 a year, one for ESJ, one EBJ. And
so basically, if you're a subscriber, you're in the lotto.
Yep.
And you guys draw a name every year from each one and take them on a hunt.
Yep. put it on TV, and
one elk. It's a lot of fun. I'll tell
20
you.
years.
Yeah.
First guy was an antelope hunter, and then we took mule deer hunter after that because drawing an antelope tag can be a struggle.
You know, half our listeners aren't even 20 years old yet.
Oh, thanks for making me feel old.
Oh
I
man.
was going to say, I think you're younger than me, but you've got Brian. So I'm not the youngest. Ike is actually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm 41, so
It's rare that I'm the youngest.
I'm the old man.
I have to say, though, I have no gray hair. In the case of Brian, he's got gray hair on his face and no hair on his head.
Well,
At 41, I'm doing good.
I don't have gray hair
on my
because I just don't
chest.
have hair. Oh yeah,
Are you bald?
pretty much.
Oh, you got the skullet? Pull that hat off, man. Oh, yeah. You got
I
a
keep
full
trying
head
to
of
get
hair,
my
though.
wife to let me bick it, and she won't. Because that's what you
Uh-oh.
do, don't you, Brian?
yeah, it's too much work to do that. So I just buzz it with the buzzer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a full head, though, don't you, Guy?
Yeah, pretty close. I got
Wow.
quite a bit of hair for 45, I guess.
I've been
Pretty
was
much.
bicking mine for 20 years, and then how long have I been growing my hair out?
Dude, you're like some kind of Scandinavian Viking.
You
boy.
do look more and more like a Viking.
Oh, I'm going to grow this. So Colton and I, so here's the thing. I've got the stick bow. So I'm growing the beard out until I just kill something. Well, bears don't count. In the fall with the stick bow. Now, Colton, he had this huge thing last year. He wanted to shoot a bull over 300 inches, and he did. And Colton killed a bunch of bulls, but he wanted to shoot one over 300. In fact, I think you guys got the story or whatever on it. Anyway, so this year he's like, I've got to shoot one over 340. So we're not shaving. Now, in my case, I don't grow facial hair at a rapid rate. Colton, he'll grow beard in a day. So right now, his is black. Colton's 27, and it looks like a bear attacked him and got stuck on his face. It is literally like out of the den, full on beard. So we're gonna grow him out till this fall.
He's gonna have to braid it, or else it'll get wrapped up in the loop.
Yeah, well, he's going bald on top too. But yeah, I started growing my hair out, and nobody even knew I had hair. A lot of people didn't even recognize me when I started growing it out because I've shaved it for 20-some years. So, which has absolutely nothing to do with Eastman's Hunting Journal. So I don't know why we're talking about that. So for you,
Because it's you, Aaron.
guys, what-
we wanted to know.
yeah, exactly. I'm a rare and delicate flower. What? So with we've covered pretty much everything I think we're supposed to. One of the things for you guys, like coming up with a guy that's kind of a legend, right? Mike and Gordon, people that are known in the industry today for Western hunters. Who were guys you looked up to other than your dad or your grandpa? Like in that era, so Chuck Adams had to have been one of the guys in the wheelhouse at that time frame. Or were you guys in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming, like I live with Mike Eastman, so I'm good? Or was there somebody you guys kind of looked up to?
Well, I looked up to Fred Bear. I remember I met him one time with my grandfather. I don't remember where we were. I think in Canada somewhere at a show or something. He and Fred were acquaintances, knew each other pretty well. And, he's definitely a pioneer, obviously, in the archery side of it, and I look up to Will Primos. I got the chance to spend some time, Ike and I did a few years ago, spend some time with him, stayed at his house and hunted whitetail. And boy, that was an experience. We were like fish out of water. He was pulling his hair out with us because we'd climb out of the tree stand to take a leak and stuff. And I mean, he just, didn't know how to put on a tree stand harness. I mean, he was just pulling his hair out with us. But, I mean, he's definitely a pioneer also in the industry in his own respect and a great business guy. And, there is a lot of good people in this industry you just come across all the time, constantly, and some great new people coming in. But
There's some guys too that people don't even know. Albert Ellis. I mean, there'll be a very small, probably nobody in your podcast audience has any idea who Albert Ellis is, but he's he in the mule deer world, in the upper echelon of the mule deer world. That guy's a legend. I mean, you walk into his house and he has, I don't know how many. It's got to be
$3. Listen to this: $3 over 40 inches. DIY, public land, never gone with a guide, never
Holy cow.
Piece of private property. He's got, I think, I don't remember if it's 6 or 8 Boone and Crockett bucks, all public land, DIY, Wyoming, Colorado, Idaho. He's from California, moved to Wyoming, 30 years ago, and kind of revolutionized or started a lot of that llama hunting way back in the 80s. And he's just never entered any of them in the record book, not about that, just likes to hunt, and he's just a hardcore guy. I mean, he was chasing this one buck that was 40 inches up the Grovont in Wyoming. This is a funny story. He hunted this buck for over 60 days. And he was up there during bow season, September, before it opened for rifle. And along came a guy, came up into the basin, and he had some fairly suspicious behavior, and he had a gun, and it was bow season. He was getting ready to shoot the buck with a gun, and Albert walked out of the timber behind him and basically tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you're not going to shoot that buck during bow season, are you?" Guy's like, packed up his crap and just left right off the mountain. And Albert ended up shooting the buck at the end of rifle season, 45 days later in the middle of a snowstorm.
Man.
But I mean, the guy is hardcore, like your buddy that slept by the rock for 3 days, that kind of stuff.
It takes that type of commitment.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I sidetracked your comment, Ike.
Oh, that was actually perfect. Perfect. There's a lot of people that I looked up to as a kid growing up with my dad, that my dad knew all these guys that I thought everybody knew them. I thought they were legends. Little did I know that they were famous in their own right, but nobody knew who they were. What they had accomplished was unreal. And in the hunting industry. And you have to remember when we were kids, the hunting industry, the Western hunting industry was a lot of people hunted, but as far as an industry like it is today, it didn't really exist. There was no Western hunting magazines. There was no Western, videos or DVDs didn't even exist. So there was no VHS that, besides the stuff that my grandfather had done in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, there wasn't anything else really out there. So it was kind of unique, and nobody really knew those people. But it was fun. It was fun growing up with my dad, like I said, pounding all that information into us and learning about species, even if you weren't hunting them, or when you are hunting them, hey, why is that antelope doing this? Or why is that mule deer doing that? And just learning. My dad is a wealth of knowledge outside of hunting. If you've seen any of his photos or done any of that stuff, it's his wildlife knowledge that has allowed him to do and get close to things and take photos of them. He loves taking photos now, and I think that's a natural progression. We were talking about trophy hunting progression. I think the next step after, Albert Ellis did this too, but they get to a point where they're like, what, I've accomplished what I wanted to in the hunting world. I still love wildlife. I think they're amazing, and I learn something new every day. So I'm going to take photos of them, or I'm going to just hang out with wildlife. And that's kind of the progression that I've seen hunters go through stages.
I think it's a passion for them, and they get to a point where they want to share it.
Yeah.
With other people, and you can do that with photo and film in a way.
Well, I've talked to so many guys that are like, yeah, my dad really doesn't hunt anymore. He goes along, but he doesn't really hunt. He camp cooks or camp jacks or, goes along with us, but he rarely ever, if ever, shoots anything. And I think that's just kind of how it works.
I think it's a natural progression of a hunter. You're hunting, your prime hunting years as a human are your 30s and 40s. In your 20s, you don't know enough. You can go anywhere you want to go. You can withstand any storm you want to, but you're too, if you're everybody's like me, we're too dumb to know what to do. I was just chasing stuff around. I was out there just on a nature hike with a rifle, hoping I ran into something, And in my 30s and 40s, I've gotten really smart about it, but I think on the back end, you go the other way, you're getting too old. Your mind's there. You know what you need to do, but you can't get there fast enough like you need to. And so you coming down off that, guys pick up, they're still interested in hunting, but they pick up other hobbies as well. My grandfather's the same way. I mean, people fall over if they knew, he was an epic gardener. loved gardening and birding, for God's sakes. Was a huge birder. I mean, he had the book and all the birds checked off, and he's into birding and gardening. Mike's he gardens a little bit, but he's into the photography heavy, and so people kind of, when they come off the hunting, they don't lose interest in it, but they pick up other hobbies and they can't do it to the level they used to, I guess is what I'm saying, physically.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad you guys came on the podcast today. I mean, is there anything you guys want to, any closing thoughts you guys have? Aaron, you got anything you want to throw out there before we end the show?
Other than just, you guys have been, super cool to deal with on the Kifaru side of things. Marketing with you guys has been great, but I think it's important for me, knowing you guys, how I knew you before, and how you guys are, how you are on the podcast. You're not full of shit, basically, which we're going to have to edit that out now, but kind of are is how you appear to be. You know what I mean? Like you're just normal dudes doing what you love to do, and you're fortunate enough to make a business out of it. And it's been great working with you guys in multiple different levels. And like, Guy, you're somebody I can call once a year and be like, dude, what are you doing? You're like, oh, Lord. And you'll tell me what's going on. And I won't talk to you again until I see you at a show or whatever. But it's been great. And then same with Ike or whatever. And your whole crew is really a good core group of guys. And I think people maybe need to know that it's more than just, obviously what you offer is great, but you're also, great people.
I appreciate that, Aaron. That means a lot. Like Guy said earlier, we're kind of in a bubble up here, and we end up being unreachable, or I don't know how you would say that, but people don't see us. Unapproachable. It's really because we're shy. Yeah.
I told you guys this offline that one of the things I really like about Eastman's, and a lot of it is, Guy publishes some opinion that is not going to be popular, but is how he honestly feels. And that authenticity, if I were to say what was unique about Eastman's, it's that it is real, that you're putting out there, especially on the political side of things. You often take a stance that the other magazines and some of the other folks in the hunting industry won't risk because they're afraid of alienating their audience. And you guys come out and say, this is where we stand on this political issue, whether it's wolves or public land or whatever it is. You come out and you say what you believe, and instead of playing it safe so you don't offend any readership, and I think that's the most important part of what you're doing.
One of the things that Dad instilled in us a long time ago is that this is about this. Our magazines are not about us, or actually the magazines are about the hunters. And if you look at our mission statement, it's about helping hunters become better hunters, not just through our knowledge, but sharing the knowledge amongst themselves. And it's not about us, it's about them and what they're doing. And it's, Guy's political stance or mine. Guy's a little bit more, he's a little bit more voiced in it, but it's about the common hunter. If it's whatever political, if it's public land or whatever, it's about the common hunter and their rights and maintaining that hunting for the next generation, whatever it is. It's not about who's got the most money or who can draw the best tags or who thinks they're so popular they need a red carpet to go down the aisle. It's not about that. It's about just regular Joe's hunting.
All right. Well, let's wrap this puppy up. And for folks that want to get a hold of you, they can reach out to you guys. What's your Instagram?
It's Eastman's Hunting Journals.
Okay. And then eastmanshunting.com.
Yeah. Eastmans.com.
Just Eastmans.com.
Eastmans.com. Yep. And your show, when does it air?
Eastman's Hunting TV show airs Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. So on the West Coast, that's 8.
On the Outdoor Channel.
On the Outdoor Channel.
And make sure any hunting questions you have, direct all of them at Scott Reekers. Everyone should email Scott.
That's right.
Call him all day, all night.
Yeah, he's the complaints department too.
Yeah.
And everyone should go out and if you're not subscribed, get on there. Get yourself an Outdoor Edge knife.
Yeah, perfect.
That's right.
Perfect. Love it. Hey, I have one question for you. I was just reading the notes as you guys were talking. Do you guys want an old time Eastman story? From like the 50s? Do you guys, Guy, do you have one off your cuff? Something that Grandpa did?
I didn't read that in the notes.
You were supposed to.
What do you got for us, Ike?
I don't think I got down that far.
Yeah, skimmer. I don't know. I was hoping Guy had one because he's the one that spent all the. Guy he'd spend summers with Grandpa Gordon, and for years, every summer he would film for Grandpa Gordon from starting at like 9 or something until Grandpa passed away. So he's heard every one of them.
I know, and you take that stuff for granted when you're a kid, and you just think, "Oh, I've heard this one 100 times, and I really should have just recorded them or wrote them down."
I heard one at one point in time, and I didn't know if it was true or not, and it was something that happened to me. This was recently in the territories, and I'm telling the story, and then a Gordon Eastman story popped up. It had nothing to do with you guys, completely separate, where a pilot dropped him off and couldn't find him because he was drunk. And he had to hike out.
Yeah, that was Lee Holden. That was in Anchorage, Alaska. This is in the mid 50s. I think this was 1955 or 56. See, Gordon started filming, or first started his filming he was a guide in Alaska for a guy named Lee Holden, who is one of the first bush pilots. I mean, if you go up to Anchorage and you say Lee Holden, I mean, everyone knows who that is. But anyway, Lee was an awesome bush pilot, but he also was a booze fighter as well in his spare time. And so he took Gordon and a client, and Gordon would film his clients with a little wind-up 8mm film camera. That's how he first got started, right? So Lee dropped Gordon and a client off. This is, granted, like I said, this is the 50s. You didn't have to go far outside of Anchorage to find good hunting, okay? It's not like it is now. You have to go clear up to the hell to the damn up north of Fairbanks and whatnot. So they're only I think they're 85 miles from town, 90 miles, something like that, and dropped them off and went back to town. They hunted and they got their sheep and their caribou, I think, and they're waiting for Lee to come back and get them, waiting. And I mean, this guy's from the city and he's getting nervous. They're about 3 days past when he was supposed to pick them up, and this guy's crapping his pants, right? I mean, we're going to die here. They ate the sheep, they ate most of the caribou, they're running out of food. Going, okay, now. So Gordon says, "All right, you wait here." Got him all set up in camp, chopped him a bunch of firewood. Said, "I'm going to hike out of here." And so Gordon, no kidding, hiked all the way to town to Anchorage and went into the bar, and there was Lee sitting on the bar stool having a drink. Gordon tapped him on the shoulder, and Lee turned around and said, "Oh, shit. I knew I forgot something." Or cranked him, knocked him flat, out cold on the floor of the bar, and they still remained friends. But Gordon was a pretty tough guy. He was a boxer in the Navy, and he could defend himself, man. He just knocked him flat out. Old Lee turned around and said, "Oh, crap, I knew I forgot something." After that, Gordon would always make him write it down in his little notebook he kept in his pocket with his fuel levels where he was to come get him.
Oh, Lord.
75 miles.
Yeah, that's just one story of thousands. I mean, there's stories of them landing to get refueled on the Alpine Highway on an airplane, and when they landed, they popped a tire, and they ended up having to figure out how to bent the prop, pop the tire. They had to beat the prop out with a rock, filled the tire with willows to fill it back up, and then sewed it with their boot laces so they could take off again. I mean, there's just thousands of stories like that.
Seems a bit risky. Some of that.
in the 60s when there was nothing out there.
Kind of seems like a pass-fail thing, which I prefer, but maybe not in that case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was before the FAA got involved and took all the fun away.
Oh, yeah. Well, we need to do this again, get some more of those stories. You guys up for that?
I'll come prepared next time. I'll write some down. I'll have my dad help me get a few good ones queued up for you.
What kind of miracle would it take to get your dad on here, too? He doesn't seem exactly a talker when it comes to a podcast, but I could be way off.
I think Ike and I could wrestle him on here. We had to do it
Evening.
in the evening, and we'll. He lives 85 miles from here in the middle of nowhere, but when we get him down here, he'll be a little slow at first. Once he gets comfortable with it, look out.
I'd like to talk to him just about photography, because a lot of the reasons I started taking photos, I was watching his photos, and I'm like, I'm out in the woods all the time. I might as well be taking photos of this crap so people can see it, because telling a story sucks, right? In comparison to a photo in a story. Oh, yeah. And so I watched his photos for forever, which is one of the reasons I got into it. So
he was in here just the other day, and Christine, our designer, had a photo up. He says, "Is that one of Aaron's photos?" And she said, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, he's getting really good. That's a great photo." So he's giving me
barely graduating high school.
Yeah,
getting the hang of it.
You guys have that in common.
Yeah. You guys can talk all that photography stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Well,
I appreciate it much. We'll see you later. Stay gritty.
Thanks, gents.
Okay, gritty friends. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. We love reading your reviews. And connect with us on social media if you're on there. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram. And take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we upload new videos. We've got a sweet deal with Mountain Ops. You get 20% off on all Mountain Ops supplements, combo packs, and apparel when you type in the word gritty at checkout. If you're a hardcore elk hunter, or you want to be, go to the Elk 101 website online and check them out. Our friend Corey Jacobson is killing it with some of the best elk hunting information and entertainment on the web. If you haven't heard, we're doing a huge gear giveaway to try and grow and expand the gritty community on Facebook and Instagram. I asked a bunch of friends to pitch in on this gear giveaway, and they all came through with some awesome stuff. Our friends at Kifaru, Rockslide, First Light, Phelps Game Calls, One Shot Gear, Mountain Ops, Triple X Archery, Blacktail Outdoors, and Is It September Yet are pitching in some sweet gear for the giveaway. We'll announce all the details in the next few weeks. All you have to do to be entered to win is like our Gritty Bowman Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. All right, friends, let me leave you with one other quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It behooves every man to remember that the work of the critic is of altogether secondary importance, and that, in the end, progress is accomplished by the man who does things." We all have a choice. We can be people who do things or people who criticize the work of others. It's pretty simple, really. Get out there and do your thing. Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.